Chair Jean Ambler. Vice Chair Christina Ponte.
Present.
Judith Ann McLaughlin.
Present.
Paul Tilka.
Present.
All is present.
Okay. Do I ask for approval of the minutes or is that you? You would think I would know this by now. I do. Okay, then. I'd like to recommend that we go ahead and approve the minutes. If you'll please take the vote on that.
We need a motion in a second.
I'll second the motion.
The chair should not be making the motion. It should be done by someone else on the board. So we just need a motion from somebody else and a second of somebody else and we can vote on it.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from last meeting.
And I'll second. Judith Ann McLaughlin.
Vice Chair Christina Ponte.
Agree.
Judith Ann McLaughlin. Yes, no.
Approve.
Paul Tilka.
Yes. Approve.
Chair Jean Ambler.
Yes, approved.
Thank you.
The motion carried 4-0.
Okay. I think the majority of our new business is to continue on and hopefully wrap up our review of the HR handbook. Is there anything else that anyone would like to cover before we dig into that?
One thing, I have to do a hard stop at 1.
Likewise.
Okay, all right.
Okay. So shall we jump in? All right, we were asked to review Articles 9, 10, and 11. And I had sent to Laura, she's graciously printed out my thoughts. In the past, the way we've handled it is we just go through section by section. So anybody want to propose a different way? No?
I
Okay.
thought we were starting with 10.
I'm sorry, you're right. 10, 11, and 12. Thanks, Judith Ann. Thank you. All right.
But otherwise, yes.
Okay. All right. Article 10 has to do with disciplinary action. And I want to also refer to the document that we just received. You've not made any additional changes to 10 or 11 or 12, right?
No changes.
Okay, great. All righty. All right, I'll go with my first comment in, this is on the page that was printed out, section 1001. I noticed that the third paragraph is duplicated. So it starts probationary and temporary employees who are disciplined. It's duplicated 2 paragraphs down.
We can fix that.
And I recommend that one or the other, I don't feel strongly.
Yep.
Okay. I also noticed that in section 1001, the 6th paragraph, I just wanted to get a legal opinion on the wording. It starts with the city retains the right to treat each occurrence of misconduct of an individual on an individual basis without creating a precedent for other future cases. To me, it sounds like what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And are we setting ourselves up for risk by treating one employee one way and another employee a different way?
I think the intent of the language is the mitigating circumstances. Like, for example, if someone's missing a lot of work because they have a sick parent, that's very different than someone missing a lot of work because they can't get up in the morning.
Yeah.
You know, so that's where I think the delineation comes in. You know,
I-
that sort of thing.
I totally agree. I just want to make sure, is this language appropriate to cover that particular set of circumstances, or are we setting ourselves up for a potential lawsuit?
I think there's good language from the lawyer's document in the prior section in 11C6, I believe it is, and it states the progressive discipline policies herein are guidelines only, and you can read on, but I agree with the language as written in the current policy manual isn't very as clear as I think it could be. So I would recommend reviewing, considering some of this where it's a little bit clearer about the idea that they're guidelines and what can be used to consider the different facets to choose a discipline. So I found the wording in this section to be kind of poor, honestly.
You please
repeat
say the section that you're looking at, because it
I-
took me a minute to get this document.
Yes,
in front of me.
so I believe this is the one place I didn't write, 11C, and then I believe it might be 6. Let me pull up the other one. The progressive discipline, and then 6, the progressive discipline policies specified herein. It's a very good summation of, it's in line with what's been stated, but I agree with Jean on what she said.
We good with that? All righty. I'm still in section 1001, looking at the ninth paragraph that starts with immediate supervisors have the authority to issue verbal warnings. And then it goes on to say that a written warning has to be done by the department director. Is that the intent? That
So-
we don't want the first line supervisor to handle written?
No, we don't. Typically, when any discipline is happening, it goes through me and it goes through with the supervisor, the department director and all that, if anything major is happening. But the supervisors have the authority to be able to do a verbal warning, because let's say you're reaching in something and it's not safe, I'm going to give you a warning that you don't do that again. That sort of thing. But if it goes up to a higher level, then it gets opened up to more people for the input.
Okay,
So does that make sense?
I understand, and I just want to make sure that that is what we intend to do. To me, it's more empowering to have the supervisor also able to give written warnings. That's more what I'm
Can.
used to.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm not the supervisor, sorry, the department director.
right.
Yeah.
So if I'm the first line supervisor, I can only give a verbal warning.
Correct.
I can't give a written warning.
No, but if a written warning is justified, the supervisor would talk to the director. And obviously it would come through me and as well as Robin.
Does that preclude them from writing an email with regards to discipline? Like, can they not state in an email what action happened? And,
Well, yeah, they can.
okay, because I don't know if that constitutes,
Typically,
you're talking a
when
formal.
you have a warning, like a written warning or something larger than that, at the bottom of the letter, it says this will be an official written warning. put
Okay, it's
into
an
your
official
file.
written warning. So does that
And-
help Jean? There's an official warning letter.
That'll be placed in the file, and any future occurrences may result in more discipline.
Right. I mean, in my experience, I've always worked with the philosophy that the first line can give verbal as well as written
Yeah.
warnings. I'm not saying that's the end all be all.
Right.
If the city is more comfortable with this, I just want to make sure that my colleagues agree.
I'm
With
more
this.
comfortable with it because we're so small.
Uh-huh.
And, there's some consistency, when you're that small and, where, infractions like flow up to the surface, we can be like, oh, we did this with this person. We should do the same for this person
Mhm.
unless there's something,
I'm
One,
okay.
one thing I'll mention is, again, my basis for comparison is the original work product of the
Mhm.
attorney. There are there's more instruction as far as what he means by oral, written. There are steps 1, 2, and 3. It's not defined as I can tell in this.
Mhm.
So I would consider adding that because in here it states that, their step 2 is a supervisor can give a written on a
Yeah.
city form. I think it's okay if you guys, to me, it's okay if they want to just do the
Our-
director, but I would recommend adding language that defines that.
Yeah, our supervisors are kind of more of foremans. Than they are, like, they're not doing schedules or anything like that, they're out in the field with them. Supervising like the work.
I think
So-
that's okay,
I'm okay with that.
but I would recommend consider adding description of what those mean.
Can you give me what the section you're talking about?
In section, same one, 11C and then 5, it gives the definition of the steps and it states what the actual steps are. Maybe you have it defined elsewhere, but it's lacking in this policy.
That's everything I noted in that first section. I'd like to open it up to my colleagues.
I had a general comment. One comment is the grievance appeals. It seems like maybe the discipline should come and then the appeals process. But I noticed in general, you don't have like a complaint process. You have a grievance, what was called grievance and appeals, which is now called
Appeals.
yes, appeals. So now but I don't see a complaint or like a smaller, and my thought was that an appeal is for dealing with when you get a disciplinary action you don't like. Right? I don't see something in your policy for dealing with employee complaints.
Well, the appeal would be about termination.
Right. And so do you in your policy have something to deal with employee complaints? Or how is that handled? I don't see anything in it in my review. If you can't call, I'll give,
Yeah.
if you don't mind reviewing for that, because in, the other document, it addresses those separately. And in this document, I don't see that. So if you don't mind reviewing for it and seeing if you should consider, or you might have it on a separate policy.
Yeah.
So,
So Christina, are you referring to a complaint as something outside of discipline?
yes.
But
Like a complaint with, it's, yes, unrelated to, it's called employee complaints. It is section.
When you say complaints, are you talking about like,
They don't like, the
Their
way that the,
schedule?
like. Let me see. Yeah, I'm uncertain. I don't know what are the reasons an employee can complain, many, right? Employee complaints procedure. Thank you. Complaint, written statement by employee concerning any non-disciplinary work-related problem. Statement submitted on official grievance form. So with what we've done, it's now no longer a grievance area and there's no grievance in there. And so we are devoid of a grievance policy at this point, from what I can see.
well,
Grievance or complaint.
only the name is changed. We changed it from grievance to appeals because grievance is collective bargaining. And this isn't a collective bargaining contract. So the spirit is still the same.
I would ask you to review and confirm that, because I didn't get that from my interpretation. It was, what I read was the appeal process is for when it's disciplinary. A complaint or
yeah,
grievance
okay,
is
right.
for non-disciplinary actions.
agreed, and it specifically says in the first page of the attorney version, the complaint procedure shall not be used to appeal evaluations or discipline, nor address allegations of illegal harassment or discrimination.
All right, I'll take a look at
So I
it.
would take
Yeah.
a look at section 12
Mhm.
of that and see if we would benefit from, you might again have it defined elsewhere.
Anybody else comments? Yes, Paul?
I do. In November, we put back to the commission, we agreed on a whistleblower
Mhm.
thing. How will that mesh into this area? Could you explain that a bit?
What's that? Yeah, you took care of that one, didn't you?
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
I think Paul's question is, where will that
lead into.
be in the new document that we're working on? Where will
Yes.
that be addressed?
I think it won't, right? I believe, I just watched your November meeting last night, so I believe the resolve was it was not going to be, and I believe looking at the minutes might help, but that was okay with the attorney and that it'd be separate. Is that,
But will that come before the Civil Service Commission? Or no?
it had in the last meeting, I believe, right? The whistleblower policy?
Yes.
Did you guys?
Separated it. It's like if you know of a director that's misusing public funds or something like that, that has nothing to do with the whole supervisor thing. It's like a whistleblowing thing. You can whistleblow to the, and it's a process of who they whistleblow to.
Right.
Ordinance will keep them. I think it's still filed with the ethics commission and different things
Yeah.
like that.
Right, so, and what about ethics complaints? Would they come before us? Or should they come before us? Or let me address that too.
Yeah.
Okay,
Ethics complaints would not come before you. The answer is no. Right, there would be, if there was an ethics complaint, it would ultimately get before the Ethics Commission for the state of Florida. There's a complaint process procedure and they would handle that
But
under
do-
chapter 112.
but do we need to look at the information that's brought forward?
So my opinion is no, because you have no control over that. It would just be matter of informational purposes and it really would not be an issue for this committee.
I
Okay.
think what we're talking about is clarifying, redefining the role of this commission. After this body of work is done, going forward, what will we be included in, advised of, and so on? So, because it was passed that we're only going to get together if there's a reason for us to get together. It was struck that we're no longer going to have 4 quarterly meetings, but I think we should clarify what we as a body would like to hear about and then decide whether or not we need to meet. Is that kind of where you're going, Paul?
Yes, it is. And, I can see, if the ethics complaint is filed before the state, and if they come back negatively to the individual, then should that come before us as to that?
Is that ethics of employees or commissioners? Or which?
Well, it wouldn't
Because
matter.
aren't they separate? One's elected and one's,
Yes, but
but I guess my question
Still.
is, are you referring to something that would be covered by the policy or is that under the whistleblower? And am I correct in the understanding that the whistleblower and personnel policy are separate? Yeah, they're
Yes.
separate. And the whistleblower is related to the commissioners and,
yeah, but what if it's an ethics complaint against a commissioner or whomever? Should we hear about it?
I think that's a valid question and it's a broader question. And maybe we should table this until we're back. And with all due respect, Tom, but since Rob's familiar, at our next section, we think about what is it that we need to be advised of.
And yes, I agree. And, it could be any of the, I don't know who would be likely to get an ethics complaint. I can imagine the commissioners and manager and
Mhm.
whomever, but I think we ought to be aware of it and investigate it and make our recommendations.
Is your question related to if so an employee is a whistleblower, goes through this process that is completely unrelated to us. However, there's retaliation in the workplace later because they came forward. Is that,
Well, that
but
would-
is that retaliation that would be covered separately, right? That wouldn't be covered by this policy or would it?
So you're mixing apples and oranges here. You're working on your personnel policy and procedures, and then you're delving into now questions relative to your authority under Division 4, Section 2-126 and so on of your code. So we need to focus on the manual. You're kind of drifting off the manual and you're going into the code at this point. And by the way, there is, I'm not sure if you've seen it, but there is a draft ordinance that has been prepared to revise that section of the code. I know that you see the whistleblower portion of the ordinance change. Claire, have they seen the other ordinance?
It was all put together. It's since been separated where it's more clear, but so at the next, we can send that to them and let them read.
Okay. All right. So,
Really understand it, so I know that where her questions are
all right. So you've already seen that portion. We've taken that ordinance and separated it into two different sections, just Civil Service Commission and whistleblower. But under the Civil Service Commission, that's where it shows the different types of matters that you have the legal authority to review. It wouldn't be in the personnel policies procedures manual, which is what you're really reviewing right now. So I'm just trying to bring you back to what you're doing today, but we can obviously, answer any questions relative to the ordinance. Maybe set it on the agenda for separate discussion next meeting.
Would be fine. I'd sort of like to hear about it.
Right.
Okay.
So for example, I don't want to know every time someone gets a verbal warning. Do I need to know if they got a written warning? Shooting from the hip, I say no, but I'd like to define at what point are we advised? But let's table that. Let's put it on the agenda for our next meeting. So,
And I guess, can I request from whoever would be responsible for supplying this? I believe in our first packet, some of this information was there, but I want to make sure that I'm using all the information available, but what we're tasked with as of current.
Right, we can send you I'm waiting to get the whistleblowing one back, the finished one. I've got the one for civil service.
Okay,
And
anything
you
that,
also can comment on that as well. We'll add those two to the next agenda. And we'll
Any-
send that out ahead of time.
yeah, I would like to
Those
know
documents.
anything that states what our objective is and who defines it. I believe you stated the location in the code, but if we can just get that summarized. So also for the advantage of the next group that comes into this, like kind of an orientation package, that says, here's what you do at the Civil Service Commission. Sean, nope, looked like you were
I
gonna
was
say
just gonna
something.
say, I hope this group finishes this one.
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, so
Amen.
that's what we did the first time. We gave you the section of the code.
Okay,
And
I-
the charter.
Is that, I do remember that. Is that it? This is what prescribes what we do? Because I've read this and is that it?
That, and then there's another tab right
Yep, I remember that as well. And I have looked at that. So those are the things that govern what what we should be accomplishing.
And there's a proposed revision.
Okay,
Yes.
that makes it clear. Okay.
All right, anything else in the very first section? All right, let's go then into section, the next section, 1002. And these are referred to as group 1 offenses, I'm sorry. So it seems to me that this, there's a desire to first in one section say, this is you call them group 1. Then there's a group 2, then there's a group 3. And also a group 4. So there are 4 levels of offenses, correct? Okay, so depending on what you do, for example, if you're caught drinking alcoholic beverage, that's immediately a group 4 offense.
Correct.
Okay, but we don't necessarily, but then, so in the first section, you say the first offense, you get a written, the second offense written, third offense is suspension. So I see that for group 1 offenses, for group 2 offenses, but I don't see that.
So the way this is laid out, group 1 are not as serious as group 2, as group 3, as group 4.
Mhm.
So therefore, as the offenses get worse, so does the discipline get
Okay.
stronger.
Okay, so then under section, let's just go section group 4. It says first offense, and then there's a long blue line. Does that mean, does that long blue line mean anything? Just,
I don't have a blue line.
No, I think you have, so each time what happens is they knock down one of those options. So
oh, okay.
So like in section 102 or 1002, it says written counseling, reprimand, suspension, discharge. The
Mhm.
next one, you no longer have the option like that. It's not, the first step is going to be written reprimand,
Correct.
suspension, discharge. And each time it just gets rid of one of those options. Honestly, I think this makes a lot of sense and it's, the only thing I would say is the language supporting it, like just be more clear saying it's not that language about saying like it's dependent on X, Y, and Z factors and making sure those aren't like at-risk factors.
Sure.
That would be my recommendation.
Yep. I like this too, actually.
I just was curious. I didn't understand why there was a blue line, but it's just an editing thing. So that's cool. So briefly looking, I've got 2 comments for section 10.2. Number 4, and I think we talked about this in the past, this idea of excessive absenteeism. Didn't we talk about this before?
Probably.
Uh,
I don't know.
And I think that the attorney was fairly strong about discipline for excessive absenteeism. Kind of violates the sick leave policy, but I'm trusting my memory,
What-
which is never a good thing. So number 4, you can be disciplined because of excessive absenteeism. And that's defined as more than 3 occurrences in any 30 day calendar
So maybe,
period.
maybe adding
But it says-
without
it says-
justifiable cause or something.
It says which have not been proved. So
Employees
if
have
you-
entered the excessive,
Yes, there you go.
which have not been approved.
And-
Okay.
And
That's okay.
I honestly did not go through each one of these. I would say as long as you have that good couch language that says, these are examples, then I think on it, someone can read this list, but you're really saying anything with just cause, we are at our discretion to assign the right level of,
Correct.
and essentially you
there's
just have to
every single-
justify it.
Section has, what's the wording? I have to find it. Violation of any departmental rule, administrative policy, which is considered within the group level, severity is determined by the department director, or city manager. So there's a catch-all in each one.
Okay. Okay. My next one is easy. Number 16, we've got a small grammar thing. Violation of any departmental rule or administrative policy, period, which. That's just. That's an easy one. Anybody else have anything in section 1002? Okay. Anything in 1003? Okay. Anything in 1004? I've got one thing in section 1005. It's item number 10. I think that defining an item of value, to me, an item of value might mean one amount. To you, it might mean something else. I would suggest that we consider putting in a dollar amount.
Isn't, I believe, is this defined elsewhere?
I remember we did talk about it.
I might recommend, instead of replicating the language, might just state as defined somewhere.
All right, I'll look at it. It's covered under the ethics.
Yeah, I don't remember,
is it?
but to me, for example, someone gives an employee basketball tickets and they might say, oh, well, the guy wasn't going anyhow, so they really had no value. I
No,
believe that
no, that-
basketball tickets do
I
have
would agree.
value.
That's in the Code
So-
of Ethics section
Right.
in 1203.
I mean, somebody gives you some cookies at Christmas, that's fine.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right. I like Christina's idea. We just want to be
According to the Code
consistent.
of, I mean, does it say anything about the Code of Ethics somewhere?
Yeah, just as defined in the Code of Ethics or wherever we put it before, just refer it to that.
Yeah, as defined in the Code of Ethics.
Anybody have anything else in 10:05? No? I have a general question. Where does the use of using company time to be on social media or doing personal email? To me, that's sounds pretty strong, but theft of services, if I'm sitting there doing my emails or on my Facebook account. But I didn't see it in any of these group.
I'm not sure it is there, quite frankly.
Should we consider? Right, right.
It's like, another example would be not just cell phones, but even on city cell phone using
Yeah.
personal time.
Well, I know that the
And then
use,
like there was an incident where I worked before where an employee was using the city vehicle and equipment and was mowing private properties. Of course,
Wow.
that's stealing. It's
Yeah,
just stealing,
it is.
you know.
I would just suggest that, Sean, you think about this, but probably this document was first written way before we had to worry about,
The internet
Theft-
wasn't even there.
yeah, the theft of time. And also, to Clara's point, theft of equipment that
That's
somehow,
in
I
here.
think the equipment is in there, but
I think both
Well-
may be addressed in 12, but I agree that it should be included in the offenses, you know, because someone could say, well, it's not in there, although we know it just makes it easier when someone's reading the policy to say in their mind, like, hey, I shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah, for this
Well, there are-
person, it was mowing, because it was their job and they would just use the city equipment to go mow it.
Yeah,
And get-
I'd recommend that. I actually was going to recommend that if I did not do a total cross check, but I think that one is in the attorney version. You might want to cross check that any, items like that.
Okay.
Sean, anything you can think of in your experience that might be missing.
Well, there's
that it's
reference
cov-
also in section 10:02, paragraph 5, wasting time.
Yeah, that's what I was just trying to say, that I think that it's covered in 10:02, section 5, you can't waste time. And of course, in 10:03, section 2, like you're not sleeping, but I think it's covered. So I don't know if we want to add language to include examples of what does it mean to waste time? But clearly, if you're on social media, you're wasting time and that's already against the policy.
I think that is less, I mean, the goal of the policy is for people to read this and think, what shouldn't I do, prevent issues from Sean having to deal with them. So I would recommend adding a more explicit one in there that states improper use of city equipment. And because wasting time loitering and leaving a sign, that to me is like more like a field guy, the maintenance guy, just sitting around while he should be doing work.
mhm,
So I recommend it. I mean, Sean can review and make a decision.
I agree. Okay. All righty, now we're on to Article 11, separations. I've got one question, paragraph 3. There's in my version, it was stricken, it's in yellow. It has to do with I could see this better in my other light, but third paragraph, it's yellow. If involuntary resignation, if it becomes necessary for the city to terminate an employee relationship due to repetitive blah, 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 what what was the initial intent and why was it stricken? Basically, it's saying you're going to forfeit your sick time.
Why did we do that?
It's, all righty, in article number, and it's 1101.
I think you folks wanted that. If I'm thinking back that it was in, something like that was in the attorney's version.
I will state that my comment is there is nothing that talks about discharge that I could find. And I would recommend, so I didn't realize that was stricken, but I have my own comment that says there's nothing about discharge that I could find. So I would refer to 11D2. And then I had another question on something.
This was in the attorney version,
Yes,
11D.
Throughout this policy, and I might be wrong here, but I could not identify anything that has anything to do with discharge of employees and how that's done. And it is included in the other version. I would think if we're talking about voluntary, we should also be talking about involuntary.
That's. I think that's covered in Article 10 more, isn't it?
And the appeals,
Yeah, I mean, Article 10 is all
Oh.
about disciplinary action and discharge.
I
If
don't think
something-
it actually states what I mean, I guess it has
I mean, I'll look at it. I'll look at whatever you
Okay.
want. I just, I'm not
yeah, I
exactly
guess
sure
there's
what
a
you
whole
mean.
section on how to discharge somebody. I can, and I actually this time typed it into your Sean, so I'll send you my.
Okay,
Thank you.
And the other one I had was name clearing hearings. It does not exist in the current policy that I could find. It does in the other version. Is that something we do or should be doing?
name clearing.
Name clearing hearings, and I could ask Mr. Trask if he has an opinion on that also. Do we perform name clearing hearings?
We do not, as far as I know.
Should we be?
It's this, yeah, it's our recommendation that there would be a name clearing hearing.
Okay, so there's nothing inclusive in that, and it would be with reference to 11D, I'm not sure, H. Clearing hearings, I can find it for you. Name clearing hearings is 11D H. Something seems wrong there. 11D2H, and that's actually the whole section. Take a look if you would, Sean, and see what you think is missing from ours when you look
Okay.
at discharge. It includes name clearing hearings in that area.
Gotcha.
Any other comments on section 11 regarding separations? All right. Can I hear an amen? We're on to Article 12 miscellaneous. All right. I've got 7 comments here. My first thought, we in paragraph 3, we cite the Civil Rights Act of 1964, race, color, religion, etc. There's no mention of age, which I know is not in the Civil Rights Act of 1964. It's a different piece of legislation. Do we need to somewhere include age? And I guess
think
this is more
there
to the
were-
attorney.
Oh, I would say the other version states race, color, religion, there were more
Correct.
classified groups, whatever you call it. I'd recommend that the harassment policy be more inclusive and state those.
Is there a section of the attorney version that you can point us to, Christine?
It is the illegal discrimination or harassment provision, and it's in Article 13 or Section 13 of the attorneys section.
Okay.
And Rob, was recommending that. I'm just reading an email that he had sent to me about that particular issue. He is saying in the email, among my most focused desires is that the city adopt some version of the illegal harassment and discrimination policy in my draft versus the sex harassment focused language, and which is light on investigation process detail, because under the Faragher versus Boca Raton case, if the employer has a well-written and detailed process telling the employee what must be done to complain internally, and the employee fails to use that process, then the employee can't sue.
John, how do you feel about reviewing the language and maybe just verbatim?
Yep.
Because I agree with that. I read both and I think
Mhm.
ours is very, I won't even bother to do the rest of my comments, which all stem from there's better language in the other.
Can you
That-
give me the section?
It is 13, the whole
13,
thing. It's a
okay.
couple of pages. It's not that long. It's just very descriptive. And it also gives you how to handle when you have an issue.
So basically, we're going to suggest that section 1201 be merged or replaced, whatever Sean recommends, right?
Yes, and
Okay.
can I make a general recommendation that can be considered by Sean? And I think we've talked about this before, but instead of having it just as miscellaneous at the end,
Oh,
having
yeah,
it,
I know.
Yeah.
you are, okay. good.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I played with the formatting and
Yeah.
something like blew up. Thank God for undo.
It's bad.
Yeah, so I
Okay.
understand that. needs to
Okay,
be
that's
done.
okay. I just
Yeah.
wanted to, that's great. Good luck. I tried messing with it. It's bad.
I know, that's why all mine is, I
Yeah.
don't touch this, I just do my own separate thing. All right, section 1202 has to do with the Florida Clean Indoor Act. And my question is, I saw that, I believe I understand that we are allowed to hire people. We're allowed to not hire people who smoke. But
Not our policy.
no, okay, I thought I read it
No, you can't
somewhere.
smoke inside, I think is the
Yeah,
policy,
let me,
right?
let me find that. But my question is, how do we handle cigarette or smoke breaks for people who do smoke? We, say you can't go
Yeah,
here.
I've been doing this 30 years, and if you have a good answer, I'd love to hear it.
I know, I
It-
know.
It's,
It's,
I just,
You hope you hire
mean, it's
employees
a-
that
it-
are respectful and.
yeah,
it's an addiction. Well, I'm not gonna say anything more than, it's just a problem.
has it become a problem for the city
Not that
where
I'm aware
people
of.
complain that Billy Bob is taking 5 smoke breaks a day? It's not fair because I'm a non-smoker.
I have not run into that here. I have at other places, but
Uh-huh.
not.
I guess you could use a disciplinary, I mean, that's use of time, right? If they're giving, I mean, you're
Yeah,
expected to
I
do
would agree.
X amount of work, and if you're not doing your work because you're not using your time, then.
Yeah. If you're on break, have a cigarette.
Yeah.
But
But so I don't think that pertains to the Clean Air Act. It's more of a,
Discipline,
I mean, most campuses are non-smoking anymore.
yeah. Yep, okay. Anything else in 1202? Okay. All right, 1203, Code of Ethics. I didn't write anything down, but I want to open it to,
the attorney's version states the Code of Ethics and Florida statutes, which I like having that, so you can refer to that for more information. I mean, his was more elaborate. I guess I'd ask the attorney's opinion on, as long as the key points are captured and you have a reference to the Code of Ethics. I mean, you do receive training. Is it adequate to just have, is ethics and defining that in a personnel policy critical? Is what's included in there, you think
Well,
sufficient?
Rob evidently thinks it is. And so I would rely upon him. He does this every day.
Okay,
So my suggestion is yes. But obviously, there is a code of ethics. It's set forth in Florida Statute Chapter 112, and it goes into details. There are 5 or 6, maybe 7 or 8 subparagraphs as to what would you consider a violation of that code.
I honestly found your language to be pretty, I mean, a lot of the attorney's version had a lot to do with the similar things, and I think you mandate training on ethics, right? Or is that, so,
Every year.
I
right?
mean, I would, in my opinion, think it's suffice to give more detail on that training and the code of ethics, and I don't, if they're not gonna, what's the value if they're not reading it or understanding it? A lot of it had to do with solicitation, solicit. I mean, you get the point, don't, so that's my opinion. I'd be interested in everybody else's. And I honestly, Mr. Trask, if you are a lawyer also, so if you have a different opinion and can offer it to the group, I'd be interested. Or are you only relaying Rob's opinions?
No.
Okay.
I'll give you my opinion.
Yes.
I think it's absolutely appropriate. It would be a good thing to do. I will tell you that elected officials have to attend a 4-hour ethics course every year. And so, a short presentation to city employees would probably be a very good thing.
They do that. So what I'm stating is we don't have to, the language is briefer in the policy. So I would think just simply stating where more information can be gotten and state that they are required to take a training would be adequate, in my opinion, than having to, add 2 more pages of discussion.
That's what we're looking for, is direction from the committee itself
Yeah.
or the commission itself.
What is
yeah,
your opinion?
I think just refer to the Florida statute. And I agree. I had no,
State that is, Sean, Mr. Lilly, is it required annually to do training, or what's the requirement for ethics training?
Clara runs it. It's required annually, right?
Is your mic on? I can't hear
Oh,
you.
sorry, I apologize. I need to move it up. We do ethics courses every quarter, and sometimes it's just, they can also register on their computer and do it, in their office or whatever. But I think that is a good thing, because if the personnel manual refers to ethics and all, everybody should have something in their personnel manual that they took that class.
Yes.
Because some don't
agree.
come, or, I think they should leave their computers outside and pay attention to it myself, because it's
It
important.
sounds like you're doing a good job with the training, so I think that's great. And then I would just recommend maybe adding the statute and the reference to the training that's required.
Yeah, I agree. I think like there's the section on ethics in the disciplinary section, which didn't have a dollar amount. This has a dollar amount. And things might change with ethics
Right.
laws and codes over time. So I think for this to be a document that can, stand the test of time,
Mhm.
to reference the code of ethics and reference the training and keep it simpler would probably be better. And then as the policy changes and evolves separately, this can still say the same. We need you to follow the ethics code.
are we good to move on? Okay. 1204, arrests.
I have do you have one? I have a question, comment. One policy states 3 business days. This one states the next scheduled work day. I almost feel like we discussed this before, but I can't recall.
Wait, where are we looking?
The current Madeira policy states that it shall be reported on the next scheduled workday. The attorney's version states within 3 business days of them being arrested. And I think the right question is to the attorney. Is it appropriate to request for the next workday, or should we allow for 3 days? I don't know if that's something that's.
The problem that we run into when people are arrested, sometimes they don't get arraigned immediately. So the next workday, they may still be in jail and may not have the opportunity to respond. That's probably the reason why Rob had suggested 3 days would be reasonable.
Is there anything unreasonable or risk oriented by including it as, it sounds, it makes sense to me as a person to state it the way it currently exists, but is there a risk legally from stating it that way?
No, there's no risk legally. It's just a matter of policy that you're creating.
Opinions from our group? The attorney version says 3 days, ours says next day. I'd imagine if they couldn't do it the next day, do we have some provision from causing an issue that way?
Well, the rule that you're reading from doesn't specifically, what it basically says is that there may result in disciplinary action. So, you know, if they take more than a day, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to result in disciplinary action. So it's just, that's what we would like it on this, in this policy. If they sat on it for a week or 10 days, that probably should require some type of disciplinary action.
Okay, with that explanation, I
Yeah,
think that
I'm,
that's.
I'm good with the
I'm
language
good
as is.
well.
Okay, anybody else? 12:05, attendance. I guess I've got a question, the last paragraph, and I didn't write this down, but unauthorized absences for work, from work for a period of 3 consecutive workdays may be considered.
Mm. That was a crux of an issue here, I believe. I think that was a big issue with a lawsuit that ended up against Madeira, right? I believe, Paul, this may be considered if it was voluntary or involuntary.
My question is about the language, you know, do you? It's just if somebody doesn't show up for 3 days and it's unauthorized, maybe to me means, well, you might let them come back to work. I'm more of a, no, no call, no show for 3 days. It will be considered as a
But I've had
voluntary
employees that have been
resignation.
in the hospital, who could not call. I've had that happen to me a couple of times. I mean, if you have a death in the family or something like that, I don't know. I tend to give people the benefit of the doubt until I have to, make some sort of move on it,
Okay.
but
I can see now that it's more, you want to be a little bit, to have a little more
yeah.
leniency. I just want to make sure that there is, that we're being consistent.
Yeah, if you have a 3-day
That's-
hangover, forget it. But,
Yeah, yeah.
If, you're stuck in the hospital and you can't communicate.
Okay.
But I will state that review of what was sent over, I think by Laura, I think, Paul, those cases you referenced to, this had caused an issue. Am I right, Paul? So I think it's not in the terms that you're considering. It was in the term of, was it someone got fired or was it voluntary? So it's less about like their ability to state that. So I don't know. I was trying to find that in the other version. I'm not sure how to protect ourselves or consider that. But maybe I can request everybody look at that in that context. I might just leave that open. I don't know the answer, but I do know that caused an issue previously.
You don't remember the circumstances, whether the person just didn't show up?
I think Paul and Mr. Trask may know better than I if they recall or are comfortable. Am I right in that?
Partially,
Okay.
but it does say work days, so I don't know if somebody had a loss or something, and they may decide to drive to Chicago or something. I think there should be some latitude. I think
Okay.
it's pretty good as it is.
Okay, let's go ahead and move on then. 12:06, Clara's favorite, borrowing city equipment. It's prohibited, so.
Oh,
that
and
one-
may
I'm
I,
sorry.
sorry to interrupt, but may I just confirm on the first paragraph, voicemail and or email notifications, are they or are they not accepted? I see it crossed through on not. I just want to make sure. Do you allow for voicemail and email notifications or no?
I'm not seeing that. Is that in 12:05?
Yes, 1205 first
Yeah,
paragraph, last sentence. Are they allowed or are they not allowed?
I think the reality is they're allowed.
I agree.
Yeah, I think
You're
they
right,
should
that's-
be allowed.
Yeah.
Voicemail. That's why I'm not seeing that as stricken.
On the board or on the television, you can see it. I'm not sure which version. It was in a version where, so it probably previously existed and then it was stricken. I would think that they are allowed, but
Yes,
That's what it says right now.
yeah, I want to just be certain.
good catch. I didn't realize. Okay. Hey, 12:06, any thoughts?
Is this relevant?
Relevant to the discussion earlier about social media and personal email, et cetera. Does any city equipment used for personal use is prohibited? Is that a place where there should be clarification of what is personal use?
Probably.
Well, I think you
It
want,
stands to add value, although it does cover everything. You want to, again, people are reading this when they come on with you and you had an incident where obviously it was able to be resolved, but
Yeah.
remind people while they're reading this, that includes lawnmowers, cell phones, computers. I would recommend adding a sentence more to state that.
well, that's related to city
It's-
equipment. I mean, I could be stealing time on my own phone.
Yeah,
So-
agreed. I'm okay with this because the way I read it is you can't take the city lawnmower
Mhm.
like Clara's, but my personal cell phone is not city equipment.
Correct.
And that's probably where I'm doing my email and social media. So I see that as mixed and not necessary to expand on. Yeah.
And there's other language. I mean, that's, I'm not, terribly, I don't have a strong, I mean,
Okay.
that's my opinion is it's better for a little bit more information and clarity for someone reading it. And then also I see here that in the attorney version, it states that electronic communication can be reviewed. Is that covered elsewhere?
I mean, what?
All city equipment, including electronic communication systems such as email and voicemail, is the property of the city and subject to monitoring. Is that covered elsewhere?
I remember someplace
thought I saw a
saying
cell
that
phone.
emails can be reviewed.
Email is to be used for business purposes. Yeah, I guess that it doesn't cover voicemail. It's FTU. City property, it also states that you should use proper care. So, and no scavenging or recycling. I know that can be an issue. So I'd recommend reviewing those and including anything that has caused issue in the past, if it's not covered elsewhere to your liking, including voicemail and scavenging and recycling. I've been on job sites where the guy said, I go grab the copper pipe and take it, I'm making hundreds of dollars a month. That wasn't, here, but yeah, I would consider reviewing 25 C and D from the attorney's work product.
Speaking of personal use of email, is there some place where we talk about whose emails are subject to public records requests?
All of ours.
1214 is all about
1214.
email. Email system is used for business purposes. I think Megan might be able to pull it up on the screen. I think the emails are covered in 1214. They'll not use offensive vulgarities.
Reserves the right to access and disclose, but this is all city email, not personal.
But personal email isn't the city's.
Correct.
So if it's covered in 1214, can you remind me what you're trying to add to 1206?
There is specific language in 25 C and D in the work product. And they include voicemail and I moved away. And yet, so the recommendation is to review, make sure it's not adequately covered otherwise. The email is probably covered, voicemail may also be covered, but
Is, yeah, in 1214, it also mentions email, voicemail, and text.
okay. So then I would just review 25C. Which includes handling, don't recycle and scavenge, cities' property.
Okay.
And to return it. And that does it for my comments. on that.
1207, appearance and personal hygiene. Any questions? Comments? No? Okay. 1208, outside employment. Any questions, comments? No. Okay. I mean, I like you've got to notify the people and I'm okay with it, but I want to open it up. Okay, 1209. My comment here is I see what is in my mind conflicting language, and that is in paragraph A, you talk about per diem, and then in C, you talk about actual. So to me, per diem means you get a flat dollar amount and you don't have to submit receipts. It's just whatever that is, if it's $30 a day or whatever. But reasonable and actual is you have to show receipts. So what is the city's policy for travel expenses?
Yeah, I get per diem and have to show receipts. I mean, there
really?
is an amount, like, it's like you can use up to $65 a day, but maybe my company's doing it wrong. I'm not sure.
Oh.
But we do work in Florida. And so, yeah, you'll say like you have $65 a day to cover your food and travel, but then you still need to demonstrate that how much
Okay.
of you're using. And I'm not sure, Sean, is that,
That, I don't know. That's probably a finance question. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, they have us
Something I'm not really
turn
getting
in
involved
those
with.
receipts. We only get paid for what we show on receipts.
So again, in my world, it's always been, Gene, here's $60 a day and we don't want receipts. And some of my colleagues will take that $60 a day. Oh, you know the answer.
do.
Yay.
So there's two ways that we do it. The per diem is mostly for conferences that don't provide you food, breakfast, lunch, and dinner and stuff. And then when they don't provide food, then we have to go out and get breakfast. So there is a travel policy that does have a little table. I think it's like $6 for breakfast, $9 for lunch, and $11 for dinner, something like that. So that's where that portion comes in. And then also if the city manager were to take out another mayor or city manager for a business meeting, that's where the receipts would come in for that reimbursement.
Okay.
Also, if we were to buy supplies for a department, if we didn't have a city credit card, that's also where the receipts would come in for reimbursement.
Okay, good to know. So there is a separate policy then?
Correct. There is a travel policy.
I
Okay.
would, yeah, refer to that in the,
Yes, refer to the travel policy. Yeah. Good. And then that gives you leeway. And that's also kind of my next question about how is mileage handled? Obviously, we don't want to put a specific rate in here because that's going to change. But if we can refer this to the travel policy, then that can be more easily
The
adjusted.
IRS comes out with a number every year.
And that's what you use, the IRS number? Okay. Then either I would recommend that either in your travel policy or in here state that mileage would be reimbursed based on current IRS authorization, whatever the right word is. And like I said, I don't care if it's in here or in your travel document. Okay. Anything else on number 9, 1209?
I might just change the verb in section B to, before travel arrangements are made, performed, just, I don't usually perform my travel arrangements.
Maybe made before travel has been approved. Authorization forms must be, I'm sorry, Judith, Ann, I'm not seeing.
Mm.
Approved before travel arrangements are performed,
Before travel arrangements are made.
are made.
Mm.
Okay, yeah,
Understood.
all right.
I don't perform my travel.
All right, 1210 drug-free workplace and substance abuse prevention program.
I think we talked
And
about this
then-
one ad nauseam, right?
Yes.
This is being revised and revisited.
Yeah, it's being worked on.
Okay,
Yep.
I think that'd suffice on that.
Exactly. Anybody else? All righty. On to 1211. Paragraph 5 is stricken. And it says, that's the paragraph that starts with, the city will evaluate the performance of its management and supervisory personnel, their involvement in achieving these permanent action objectives, da, 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 da. So why would the city not want to evaluate the performance of its management as it relates to affirmative
We
action?
are not required to have an affirmative action plan. You have to have a federal contract of over $50,000, then you're required to
Okay,
have
okay,
one. That's not to say we can't do something along those lines,
uh-huh,
to promote, but we're not required.
thank you. Anybody else in 1211?
I guess I was wondering about, just for clarity, having all of the non-discrimination policies would seem to make sense to be all in one place. So, and obviously it's quite important, so it seems weird to have it in, miscellaneous. So I feel like we had already talked about, in previous sections, regarding civil rights and non-discrimination, and maybe we just kind of collapse that into one section would be my suggestion. I'm not sure why it appears again here in miscellaneous, but I would think anything related to the harassment, related to discrimination should be all in the same place.
Yeah, I think we've talked about this idea of miscellaneous.
Mhm. And
No.
I think Mr. Lilly said he's gonna work on that.
Yeah, it's like
general-
that drawer everybody has in the
Mhm,
kitchen.
mhm.
Yeah.
We
And
all
I-
have that drawer, right, in
Yeah.
the kitchen.
I
It's-
think
yeah.
all up until 12:1 to 12:11 are all, I mean, it seems to be ethics,
Yeah.
work expectation, employee, employer. And then I had 12:12 as like not really fitting.
Yeah,
And I would recommend it be early on in the manual. The attorney worked a product had equal employment opportunity as a second page of the document. It does make reference to all federal and local state laws, which I think this one does as required by, so.
yeah, I'm imagining that this section was added, and when you look at the dates, they're referring to ordinances from 95, 99, 2007, and I think the tides have changed a bit as it relates to affirmative action, so we're counting on you to take a look and
Update it.
do it right. Okay. All right, anything else in 1211? All right, 1212, donation of sick time. I know we talked about this quite a bit, and obviously my first thought is to move it to the section about sick leave. But I need somebody with a better memory than mine to talk about, are we comfortable with the way this is documented?
That there was a version given to us at this meeting.
Okay,
And it doesn't reference that at all. 1212 is now employees giving back. Like if you look up at the screen, the whole thing has been stricken from here.
Right?
Okay,
It's
okay.
somewhere else in.
So. you
So we
should
did
have-
move it.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
been moved already, but if you have, there it is, the thing to your right in green.
Yeah.
That's what current 1212 is.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thanks for that little memory kick there. Yeah, I knew we had talked about it, but so we've covered this then. Good. 1212. All right. 12,
But there's a
New 1212 now, which is about using volunteer time. So you might want to look at that green language in yep.
that's volunteer time? No?
Yeah, it's called employees giving back, using 8 hours of paid time off each year to volunteer in the community.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's really nice.
That is good. So that at 1213 talks about the Pinellas County School Partnership. And that's about donating time, but specifically toward mentoring and tutoring. But does that new language, I mean, how does 1213 with just the school? Do we want to leave it? We've got the school thing and we've got the 8 hours anywhere, or is it, or if you do one, do we only want to do one or the other?
Well, they both require the department head. So presumably it's going to be up to the department head when they're approving the 8 hours to approve what the employee is doing with the 8 hours, whether they're doing the school partnership or some other volunteer opportunity.
And that's my question is, if you're doing the school partnership, can you still do the 8 hours for something else?
That is a good question.
And I have a question also, which I will direct at the attorney. Is it, or actually everybody, would it be better to put these specific programs in a separate policy outside of the personnel policy? Is like, are these subject to change over time where naming the specific partnership may not be ideal? Or is this a longstanding, never going anywhere partnership?
Yeah, this is from 2000, this Pinellas County School
I'm not
Partnership.
familiar with the partnership.
Okay,
I
it sounds
just-
like
I-
maybe
it's-
it's not even
Yeah,
something
it's
you do anymore.
2007 and 1999.
Oh,
So-
here we go.
Here we
I
go.
know
Yay.
Bob was mentoring somebody.
So- Sometimes these like specific programs may not be best for a personnel policy, rather reference that we might have additional programs.
So Bob was a mentor for the Madeira Beach Fundamental. I don't know how far back this goes, but as far as that program, it's once a week during the school year. And at lunchtime, the student did a Zoom with Bob, but I think now it's back in session at the school. So I think that's where that's coming from. But I'd have to double check on if they can do both with Robin.
So that's the recommendation and you'll look.
I think,
whether-
yeah, and I think that's why that's there. So maybe they can do both, but we'll have to ask Robin.
Yeah.
Just one other point of information. My daughter went to that school for 9 years. And I also volunteered there. And there is a cost. There's a cost for the background check. And I want to say it's like $50, $75. Like it's not an insignificant amount. So when we work to get our students as school volunteers, we've tried to find ways to cover the cost of the background check because it's not insignificant. I mean, especially for my students who are working to put themselves through school. And then you say we want to volunteer in the schools, but here, by the way, you have to pay $75 in order to volunteer. So I guess I'm following up on the suggestion of maybe having a separate policy, but I would also suggest just as a thing, if the city wanted to, say once a week, take your lunch break and go over and help these kids, it might be nice. I don't know where the money's coming from, but it might also be nice to like help get this background check. Unless some of your employees already do a background, when you get the fingerprinted and
Yeah.
now I'm trying to remember
The-
what level volunteer I was in order to be able to
I
actually.
mean, my
work
career
with
was in
kids.
schools up north and they had separate agencies that they went through. They went through all the regular ones, but then they went through child services and a whole bunch of other different directions. So I don't think they're going to be the same.
Is this employees back policy a new program?
Yeah.
Okay. So do we recommend it be a separate policy, or do we like having the language in the personnel policy? And to my
Because we're talking about time off, what you can do with your time, what is wasting time, what is using your time for the city wisely. I think having this in the policy makes sense because now we're saying, okay, part of your authorized time as a city, we're saying we're going to support with taxpayer dollars, our city giving back to the community, and you can use 8 hours. I feel like that part is relevant because otherwise, why are we giving people time off and not having any kind of documentation or policy about it? Doesn't make sense. So, so I think that's great. And I applaud that use of the city giving back to the community. As it relates to the Pinellas County Schools and Madeira Beach, I think it's been a great relationship between the city and the school, but maybe that particular, or mention it as an example. But like, if you're going to authorize an employee to like every Friday for lunch, I do Meals on Wheels. If you're going to say these employees, like every Friday at lunch, they go work with the student, that's a significant thing. And they're going to be going over every week. Like maybe it needs to be here because that's like a big deal. And if the city was going to get behind, like, okay, we really want to invest in these kids. And we're going to maybe it does need to be there, or at least as an example, because it's a potential for a significant time commitment by an employee if they're doing it every week.
Okay, I agree.
Okay. 1214. Here we talk about email, and my understanding of this is, I think we've already talked about this, but let's all be on the same page. This is referring to emails that are city emails, not personal emails, correct? So any comments, questions, suggestions? My only thought is that in section 1214 under email, I say suggest replacing discouraged with prohibited. I'm sorry, that's in the social media policy. And it's close to the bottom where it says using city computer systems, the use of social media for business purposes is allowed, but personal use of social media networks is discouraged and could result in disciplinary action. So we had talked about it previously, where does the city fall on this? It's, yeah, we discourage you to not be on Facebook 8 hours a day, or we prohibit you.
I would prohibit that.
Yeah, prohibit.
Yeah,
Prohibit.
yeah.
But I didn't oppose the language as it stands, though. I mean, I think 100% prohibition.
I guess when you're
It's- I
talking
mean,
about
it's-
wikis and every other,
But on company time, I don't care if they're on social media during a lunch break, but I don't want,
what if it pertains to your work? If you're on a wiki that's to do with your
Well,
work.
that's for business purposes.
Oh, okay.
yeah, it says for
okay.
business, but this is for personal
I've
use.
had people that will just sit on social media. I don't think it's productive for the workplace. I would prohibit it.
Yeah, so we're all in agreement. We're saying it's for personal uses prohibited, makes it easier. Judith, no, am I misreading your facial?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It says discouraged and could, I mean, yeah, if you're there, obviously, if you're like doing nothing but playing around on the computer and you're not doing your work, obviously that should be subject to disciplinary action. But like, unfortunately, now I could probably change my notifications, but even while I was here, I'm getting a thing, from the Washington Post, like what happened to the Buffalo shooter, like I don't,
And I would think
things
that
might pop up as notifications for news events or things that someone then clicks over to see.
I think that would be
one thing.
I think that the policy is there to back somebody if they have an issue with it. You know, I'm guessing this won't make supervisors or anybody else, but like if it becomes an issue, they can state like, look, it's, you know, it is prohibited.
And we're talking about city computers.
Oh, that's true. Personal use is discouraged. So you want to say, change it to personal use is prohibited.
Prohibited on city computers.
Actually, we should probably include cell phones too.
City computer systems and cell phones.
And again, it says could result in.
Mhm. I just want to back up that supervisor or manager and give them the tools that they need if it's a problem. And I don't think it would be a problem, what you're describing, but we've given them some teeth. And speaking of cell phones, there is a cell phone policy. And it's my understanding that this covers cell phones that are issued by the city, correct?
Yeah.
And I have no comments on it, just are you comfortable with this language and the way it's going?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
fine.
Any other comments?
Oh, actually, sorry, before I meant to ask about going back to 1214 with the emails. I mean, this talks about that management reserves the right to, look at the emails, et cetera. But is it also worth reminding people here that, anyone can ask for their emails, to see their emails, just the reminder of the public records requests, because it's not only the management, it's a different kind of workplace environment where everything is
We could do that.
available for everyone to see, which also might motivate people to be more careful with what they're saying.
The other part that you might want to add to the social media policy, we did one for ours more for like LinkedIn. And you might want to put reference to when you're representing the city. I don't know that it's in here, but people, we said for our organization, I like that you state that they use their best judgment, but it's especially sensitive when like LinkedIn's involved or there are things where you're representing the city. And I don't know if you would want to include something where the city could request they take something down from LinkedIn. I don't know. Are you all familiar with LinkedIn? And
I don't know if we can tell somebody to take something down.
the attorney, if you're representing the city on LinkedIn, I believe.
LinkedIn and
Mr.
Facebook.
Tress.
I know our hospital has a policy
You're
of,
representing the
You're
city
representing.
as an employee of the city. Are you able as a organization to request they remove a post?
I'm just looking at the social media policy. I'm trying to read through it real quick. So
Can you clarify what you mean by represent the city?
When you're on LinkedIn, you are linked to your company. So you would be shown as an employee of the city of Madeira, and anything you state would show that you are currently employed by the city.
and I want to expand this to Facebook. In my hospital environment, we're very clear, we can't say, oh yeah, we're taking care of this patient, even though they don't give the name, involved in a car accident. Or you have employees that are, this hospital stinks and da, 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 da. So some kind of a protection of the organization and social media.
Yes, I don't see that, and I would recommend we review and find legally appropriate language that allows, if possible, to allow you to monitor that and prevent an issue, because it can become one.
How often does it happen that someone comes and says, did you see so-and-so's Facebook post?
We had an issue.
Yeah.
Our organization had an issue where it was somebody commenting on a work-related thing and or political in nature, I believe, and it was associated with our organization. And so,
Yeah. We've had issues too.
and can I ask Mr. Trask if that is how that fits within the legal regulations?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question, but I've just made a note to Rob that is an issue that definitely needs to be addressed.
Okay, and I
Okay.
don't see anything in the attorney work product, so I can't use the cheat sheet.
The world was so much easier. Right. Okay. 12, 15, violence in the workplace.
It's not 12:16.
Okay, sorry. I've just always had my working document, it's called, to makes it easier for me to continue on the same one. Whatever the number, I apologize, violence in the workplace. I have nothing specific. Anybody? Okay.
So on the weapons into the workplace, which I 100% support, and maybe this is an attorney question, might there be, like under current law, we can prohibit that, correct? I know there's some proposals in Tallahassee that would promote guns everywhere, but we could still prohibit guns in the workplace
There are.
regardless of what the state does.
There are certain statutes already in place that deal with, and when you're talking about a weapon, you're talking about guns in city facilities. So that is already covered. And I'll remind you that, that particular issue is preempted to the state. And we have very little ability to regulate weapons other than what is already state mandated by state statute.
I'm not sure that I fully understand that. Do you guys, are we in line with what should be included in there or not?
Well, I would recommend that we keep it in here regardless of if the state says that people should be able to bring weapons into this workplace. But that's my opinion.
I would like that, but from the attorney's perspective, we can't prohibit something that by Florida statute is agreed upon, no matter how distasteful it might be.
Yeah, it's not gonna do us any, if they're
Yeah.
they're not gonna say, hey, the personnel policy said I couldn't bring this gun into work, so I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
So I'd recommend we do what is in line with,
If
can we
we,
take a minute to review that, please? And, because we're on the last section, right? So we're almost done here.
are you asking us to review it or them to
yes, I
review
wanna-
offline?
I want to review this. There's a 1-page on the attorney work product that,
And we're in good place time-wise.
I guess if we could, the language could stand, no employer visitor. And it says, with the exception of sworn law enforcement officers shall bring any weapon into the city facility, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe shall bring in any legally prohibited.
I
Or
would
legally
recommend, so I'm
permitted.
guessing the lawyer attorney work product was very intentionally written, and I see some discrete differences between what we have and what's.
Okay, which section are you?
I'm having a hard time finding it. Anybody can find this? Workplace violence. Threats, I think was the. 23,
Yeah. And
the one
23.
pager that says does not condone violence. Intent to provide something free of violence. Violence against anybody is unacceptable. And can have criminal charges. We will use law enforcement.
Okay.
It is not permitted on duty, any of those possession use or threat of use.
But it does have possession, use, threat of a deadly weapon, including a firearm. ammunition, explosive device, illegal knife, bow and arrow, or other weapon is not permitted while on duty on city property or in a city vehicle unless specifically required by law. I guess we could say unless specifically required or permitted by law.
So what is your recommendation, Christina, that we add that statement someplace or that we,
Can I actually just ask what the attorney's recommendation is for this? Is this an area that presents a high risk and we should be more closely echoing the original work product where it's one page and states briefly?
So Rob is adamant that his policy is the one that should be used. And so if you're asking me whether we should use the current one that's in the city policy or the one that he's recommending, obviously it's,
Is it in all capacities he's recommending that? I think we've been working on a dialogue. We understand what he's recommended. We're trying to come to amends here, right? We're trying to make it work. So I guess there are higher risk scenarios in a personnel policy and lower, in my opinion, right, from a legal standpoint. And I guess your opinion as an attorney, and your knowledge base, I know this is not what you do day in and day out, but
right, it is not. So, I would, my position is that we should follow Rob's recommendation relative to the workplace violence and threats.
I would tend to agree with that, because this is a very, this to me is a high risk scenario. Use of cell phones, so what? So
So
be it,
Sean-
you're not going to hurt somebody. To me, I would like to make sure that we have really good language related to that.
okay, so you're going to follow up and review? Perfect. Perfect. The end. Yes, deep breath. So, okay, well done, team.
Good job, guys.
So we have less than a half an hour left, and I think it's important that we decide not only our next meeting date and time, but more importantly, what are our next steps?
Next step is trying to put this into a document that, that makes sense.
Mhm.
And then probably have a review
Mhm.
after that.
Okay,
And that's what I don't know, that's what I think. Anybody has a better idea.
I agree. I'd say let's let
Yeah.
John get a chance to put everything together, get an updated product, and then we re-review, discuss.
And I also want to have payroll review it because they use this a lot. Make sure we're not doing anything that's going to trip them up. I don't think we
Okay.
are, but
and can I also suggest, does it make sense to have Rob look at it before we get together?
Sure.
And if he's got any
Hmm.
red flag areas, let the two of you work it through before it's distributed to us for our final review. Does
Yeah,
that make
thank you
sense?
for that. I was gonna bring that up.
Yeah,
I'd recommend we focus on high risk, that we are not gonna, we've moved forward from, we're not adopting verbatim what he's presented. And I would like to just mitigate the highest risks, and make it the most usable possible. So did you recommend that he set up a meeting and you two discuss, or is he just gonna review it? Rob?
those two communicate however they
yeah,
want.
we'll figure it out.
Okay.
Yeah, before it comes to us.
Right.
So again, same thing, so that he can say, this is high risk, and
Yes.
they can
Yeah.
debate it before it comes to us and maybe tell us, we identified these as high risks, and of the five, 4 of them the city agrees with, one, whatever it is, just give us a summary.
Do you want to wait to set another meeting date? Because I'm not sure like how well this is going to work with schedules and things like
Yeah.
that.
That was my next question.
Yeah.
Do you have a feeling of how
I
long
don't know about Rob,
you need?
so.
How does this fall on your priority list? Are you able, in the next couple months, you'll be able to
Oh,
work on
God,
this?
yeah, I would
Okay.
think so.
Yeah,
Do we shoot for 2 months and to set it?
yeah, I
I mean,
feel
not,
like,
not choose a date, but say, we'd like you guys to coordinate.
And if there's- if
before
there's a
April
delay- if there's
30th.
a delay, we'll deal with it. you know.
let's, I feel like people work better with an impending event. So let's set as a direction that
do
we would
agree with
like to
that.
have this
Tomorrow?
Last week, please.
no later than April 30th. Is that reasonable? That gives you 2
Think
months.
so?
Anybody want to change that date?
April. April 1. I'd say like beginning of April so that you can come back and say in the middle of March that you need till the end of April. So I would shoot for
Okay.
the beginning of April.
That's fine.
That's 3 months, right?
February, yeah. And then I'm also going to recommend that we use this next meeting to focus only on this document, but that the subsequent meeting, we talk about roles and responsibilities. I know it's important, but I just think it's going to be,
Can we set up a meeting without Sean that we do that at, or does Sean need to be at all of our meetings?
I don't know what's the charter say.
I have it.
I don't think you need me.
I don't
If we
think-
wanted to do a work meeting on the next,
I feel like we should have Sean.
definitely, yeah. And I don't, yeah.
Okay, whatever you want.
I think what we're looking for is, we have this existing document of our roles and responsibilities. We know there are some proposed changes. So I don't know that I'm clear. I know exactly what is happening now, but going forward, we've talked about conceptually, we want to be notified if there are things going on, but we haven't defined what are those things. And it's taken away the requirement of the proposed language takes away the requirement of mandatory 4 meetings and will only be, I would just like to get more concrete on that.
Yeah, I would definitely suggest Robin be there for that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
so I guess it depends on how long. Let's dedicate the meeting to just the review. I fear it might take, hopefully it'll fit in one meeting, but we need to separate those, right?
Yeah.
We don't want to re-review the policy with that discussion.
But Robin does need to be there to help us. And I don't think that's going to be a 2-hour meeting, but anyhow.
I don't think I've reviewed the proposed changes to the Civil Service Commission. Is that something you can send out and also, or did you? Or maybe if you could send it out like soon and then let us know what's the timeline for the commission to review it and when the public comment is and
Where are those comments coming from? The commissioners, or where are these changes coming from?
They came from Rob. Rob was the one that prepared it. So we have that, it was originally came to you evidently in one ordinance. It's now been split into 2 ordinances. The first part of it, the roles basically of this commission is ready to move forward for the next Board of Commissioners meeting that Robin thinks is appropriate to set it on. He's the one that creates the agenda. And the whistleblower one, as we've received comments back from Clara, those have been sent to Rob. I sent an email to him last night, asked him where he was at relative to that. So I expect his comments on that fairly quickly. And so both of them could be coming back to the commission for first reading as soon as, okay, April.
We're not putting any first readings of ordinances for the March because we have a new commission. So any first readings will start back in April,
Okay, so there's where we're at.
but we'll put them on workshops, so beforehand.
But as for you getting a copy of them, we can absolutely send them to you. First of all, the Civil Service Commission one, again, has been completed. It's been provided to the city clerk, so the
I'd
city
send
clerk
that
can
out today.
can circulate that today. And then the
I guess
whistleblower one will be soon
two
after.
comments. I would like to have an opportunity to review it and get together in a workshop to discuss it before it's voted on by the commission. And second, I have to say, I'm a bit disappointed that all of this is going on and we've not been involved.
Wait,
Up
may I
until
ask
now.
what the nature of the changes are to it?
Didn't you say
someone
that they had
summarize it?
reviewed that at the last meeting?
Rob discussed it at, I think was October, was it October or November? And then, so that's where it's at now. And then everybody gave their comments, and I think Paul Tilka had asked that I look at it, and did have some changes to it, and I sent it to the commission. I sent it to Rob, so we're gonna bring that back, and y'all can look at it, and if you got more changes or, questions or whatever. I know you just said that the next meeting, you only wanted it only on the, policy. You still want us to add those items to that agenda, or are you still?
I think we're crossing I think we're trying to understand what we need to do and then order them and then define the meetings
Okay.
that should be. We need a single meeting for the policy review once Sean has figured out. And so we're probably ending up with that meeting sometime in late April or May. If you are able to say, get your comments and revisions together in beginning of April. I don't know if there's other urgency to get this done that would push that sooner, but if not, we heard April 1st for you guys to submit to us. And that would put us beginning of May for our meeting, right? To give us a month to review. That sound right
Mhm.
for that one?
Mhm.
And so I guess the question is, in between, do we set up a meeting without the focus of the policy, procedure manual, personnel policy? And in between, is that, Jean, sound like that's?
If the Board of Commissioners is going to be voting on this or first reading in April, I would like the opportunity for us to see it and chat about it before that.
So I
What I was saying
That would
was,
be in March. for
first
us.
readings of ordinances, we will start back for April, not necessarily that one.
May
But
I
we
make-
can meet
sorry.
before that. though.
Sorry about that.
Uh-huh.
May I make a recommendation based on what I'm hearing? I would recommend in March, we set a meeting to discuss what we do as a civil service commission, review the changes. It sounds like maybe we have seen them, we're forgetting, I'm not sure. So we set a March meeting to do that and anything else we want to discuss. And then we, in May, review the policy. Does that sound like
agree. I
does
li- I
everybody
like
think that
that.
sounds reasonable?
And I think that March meeting will be
Quick.
no more than
hopefully.
an hour. If we get everything ahead of time, we all prepare our thoughts and notes and questions. I don't see it being more than an hour.
Now, the third week of the 14th is our city election. We'll be very busy that week. And the following week, getting us, on the 22nd swearing in and all, we'll be doing a lot of preparation for that. So maybe the first week of March or the last week of March or
Sure.
something.
What does everybody?
Bring my
First week of March
calendar.
is coming quick, so I would.
Yeah.
I would say maybe end of March, beginning of April.
What's the date of the April meeting where there's a potential first meeting, reading?
That's
It's
a good
not
question.
specifically on that one, but it's first readings. We start back in April. But y'all can talk about it again, and then we can plan if we don't make it for the first regular meeting in April for the commission, then the first reading will be in May. So they'll give you plenty of time to talk about it.
So are those dates handy of those April and May meetings?
I'll send to you the meeting schedule of the commission today.
So it may have first reading in April, or it may get bumped to May. Is that right, Claire?
Correct, because
Okay.
it'll be workshop with our new commission.
Huh.
And then it'll go for first reading. The whistleblowing and all will be discussed with the new commission.
So
I'm
sorry.
There's a possibility we could have we do have two new members, but we could possibly have three new members. It's almost a whole new commission. We don't know yet until election day.
Paul, do you recall it sounds like Paul made comments. So have we seen the updates before? You're saying as a group we have. seen
You
these?
saw it as two subjects in one ordinance.
What was reviewed by the group last
Yeah.
in November.
They've been
You guys
split.
saw this language.
Mhm. Yes.
But we didn't really discuss it. Our focus was on this, and we talked about setting it aside to another meeting another time. So, And I guess-
But you all skimmed it in the meeting? I don't even have
I
a
don't-
copy. I learned today
Yeah.
from
I
Laura
did not
that-
remember.
You
seeing
were
that.
absent.
I was. So I reviewed the video last night, and so I'm recalling from the video that they reviewed it quickly at the thing, but I hadn't had a copy, which I found out you can get on the website, which I know better now.
Then I'll send the updated ones. I don't have the updated one on the whistleblowing yet. As soon as I get that one, I'll send that out to you.
You have seen it, so I think it makes it less concerning. It sounds like
it was here it is, but we didn't do any kind of a deep
Correct.
dive or.
And it's been split now. It's two. the
So,
civil
okay,
service-
so does anybody have any restrictions for the last week of March or the first week of April for us to meet? Let's say dates that are not good and then ask the city to get back to us after checking their calendars. So,
Bring my calendar.
I prefer for Tuesday or Wednesday.
Tuesday, okay, Tuesday or
can't-
Wednesday.
April
can't do
25th or
Tuesday.
6th.
You can't do a Tuesday? Okay, so then we're going to shoot for a Wednesday, either the last week of March or Wednesday, the first week of April.
Nation. What in the world is this?
I have
And
to
then if
try, yeah, can we maybe do a couple of dates and then are we able to resolve it by, so we're saying maybe March 29th or April 5th, but I'm not. I don't have my travel
Oh,
dates in
actually,
front of
I'm
me. I'm
wrong.
so sorry.
So we're going to target a Wednesday. And then because you can only make it on Wednesdays, is that?
Not in general. I actually, no, I was actually on the wrong, I guess if it's in the middle of the day, at 11. I've been very lucky to be able to make all of these, but I do get
Yeah.
pop-up work things, so, it actually looks like I'm okay most of those days. Tuesday's pretty open. I'm trying to pick days where I don't have a lot on
Yeah.
the schedule.
And you like Tuesday, Wednesdays?
Yeah, I definitely cannot do Tuesdays. I know without looking at my
Okay,
schedule.
all righty.
I teach on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
So we've given you hopefully, Come-
I
come to
would
us with a couple
recommend,
of
let's
dates.
choose, I also have a 1 o'clock, call I need to be on
Yeah.
and I need a few minutes to prepare. So I would recommend we just choose and, possibly communicate via email to set it
like we
up.
did. Yep.
Is that?
Yep.
I would say Monday, Wednesday, is that either of those at 11 a.m.? And Judith Ann, you said you don't have, you
Probably
can
Wednesdays are
Wednesday
better. They're supposed to be cleared.
All
at
righty.
11 a.m. again?
Try for that. Yep.
Then I'll write back.
The only thing I'll mention is we do have a special magistrate meeting Monday, the 27th at 2 p.m. So you would have a hard stop there.
Okay. Thank you. All right. I know that people would like us to adjourn, but I want to open it up. Is there anything else we need to add, discuss? Oh, again, thank you all for a very productive session. And we did it. Hoorah.
Good job.
Okay. So I don't have to officially do it, but I'm doing it anyhow. This meeting is now adjourned. So there.
Thank you.
Thank you all.